the United States believes that the next century will be decided by exactly two things: industrial power and hemispheric control. Let me explain what that means in plain language. America wants to secure the entire Western Hemisphere completely, not partially, completely. Canada, Mexico, Greenland, the Caribbean, Central America, every country in South America. The whole region must fall under American strategic influence. Why would they want that? Because if America can lock down the Western Hemisphere, then the United States becomes what strategists call Fortress America. Energy independent because they have their own oil and gas and renewable resources, food independent because they have massive agricultural capacity, militarily protected by two oceans that are difficult for rival navies to cross, economically self-sufficient enough to outlast any rival in a prolonged confrontation. This is not a new idea. This has been the underlying logic of American grand strategy since the Monroe Doctrine in 1823. What is new is the urgency. For the first time in decades, American strategists genuinely believe that the window of opportunity to consolidate this position may be closing. And that is why you see the aggressive posture toward Greenland and toward the Panama Canal and toward Mexico. That is not random nationalism or a crazy tweet. That is the logical conclusion of a strategic doctrine that says secure the base first, then fight the periphery from a position of absolute strength. At the same time, the United States wants its allies to fight regional wars on behalf of the empire. This is the division of labor. Europe handles Russia. Japan and South Korea contain China. Israel and the Gulf states contain Iran. And what does America do while everyone else is fighting? America finances the wars. America sells the weapons. America controls the shipping lanes. America absorbs the economic and technological advantages while its rivals exhaust themselves in regional conflicts. This is why the American defense industry is expanding so aggressively right now. Most people look at the news and think these wars are accidents or mistakes or the result of bad leadership. They are not accidents. Wars create industrial mobilization. Wars create debt dependency. Wars create alliance dependency. When a country needs American weapons and American financing and American intelligence, that country becomes strategically bound to American foreign policy. That is real power. Not the power of invasion and occupation, the power of indispensability. And so when people say that Trump is irrational or that Washington has no coherent strategy, I completely disagree. There is a strategy. The problem is not that there is no strategy. The problem is that the strategy is extraordinarily dangerous. Because once you start creating simultaneous pressure points across multiple regions of the world, eventually one of those pressure points breaks containment. A miscalculation in the Taiwan Strait, an accidental military exchange in the Persian Gulf, a NATO article triggered over a border incident in Eastern Europe. Any one of these things could ignite a chain reaction that nobody originally intended, but that the structure of the system makes almost inevitable. And that is why I believe there is now a very high probability, I would say approaching 80% over the next decade, that this escalates into a broader global conflict. Not because any single leader wakes up one morning and wants World War III. That is not how history works. It happens because the incentive structures are pushing all of the major powers toward confrontation simultaneously. China cannot accept permanent economic strangulation. That would mean the end of their development and their political legitimacy. Iran cannot accept permanent encirclement by American bases and allied militaries. Russia cannot accept continuous NATO expansion toward its borders after everything that has happened in Ukraine and Georgia and the Baltic states. And the United States cannot accept the collapse of dollar dominance without losing the entire financial architecture that funds its global position. So all four powers are moving simultaneously like tectonic plates grinding against each other. The pressure is building in ways that become harder to release peacefully with every passing year. Diplomacy becomes harder. Trust erodes. Accidents become more likely. Now here's the final thing I want you to understand, because this is perhaps the most important lesson of all. History shows us that declining empires become most dangerous precisely when they realize their dominance is beginning to fade. Because at that point, they stop calculating in terms of long-term peace and prosperity. They start calculating in terms of survival and preservation. And preservation creates desperation. Desperation creates risk tolerance that would have been unthinkable just a decade earlier. That desperation is what you are seeing right now across the entire world system. The military buildup, the economic sanctions, the naval deployments, the trade wars, the emergency alliance formations, the rhetoric about enemies and civilizational conflict. This is not random. This is preparation. The frightening reality is that most ordinary people still think these are isolated events. A war here, a trade dispute there, a naval exercise somewhere else, when in reality, they are all threads in one enormous geopolitical transformation that is now accelerating in real time. The document told us what was coming. The map told us where. The economics told us why. The only question left is whether the leaders making these decisions have the discipline and the wisdom to step back from the edge before the system reaches a point where stepping back is no longer possible. History, unfortunately, does not give us many reasons for optimism on that. But I will tell you this much. Understanding the game is the first step to not being a piece on the board. Most people will never even get that far. You just did.